Kirsten Stevens with the Global Good Channel by the Canico Agency, where we focus on building nonprofit infrastructure, support, sustainability. We help with grant research and grant writing and board development. And the Global Good Channel is our passion project where we offer you education and resources to strengthen your organization every single day. Today, what I want to talk to you about is your end of year. All of the things that go into the end of year for your organization. And what we have are 6 tips for you for your end of year effectiveness. And those tips are actually part of a blog that we have on our website. So we'd love for you to go take a look at that, and you can actually download the list yourself. But I want to do a little overview of the things we touch on in that, because I think it might be really helpful for you. So we want to start with the first area. The first of our tips is about your financials. This is a really good time. You know, we're now coming to the end of the year of 2020. A lot has happened this year. We've had to focus and refocus on different things and reprioritize, but we do need to make sure that our financials are in order. This could be a really good time for you to sit down with your CFO or with your CPA or with your bookkeeper or accountant and just take a look at your financials and make sure that things are looking like they're in order. Make sure that your income and expenses are classified properly, your grants have been allocated properly, your spending from those grants is allocated properly. So this is a great time to really tighten up your financials and get ready for your 990, which you'll have to submit by May of next year if your fiscal year is your calendar year. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is about your donors and your donor communications. 2 things I want to focus on that in that area. The first one is, have you thought about doing your end of year appeal? I know we're all wondering if this is a good year to be doing it. Do we feel like we've already exhausted our donors because we've had a lot of communication about COVID? We've had a lot of communication about food insecurity and families dealing with issues with rent and mortgages and so on. But the reality is you still have a donor base, and that donor base needs to be communicated with. You still need to steward them and cultivate them, but you also need to be making your solicitations. So be thinking about the timing for your end of year appeal. Is this the right time for you to go ahead and start preparing for that? And then really put that on your calendar. Typically what we want to do is send out, if it's an end of year appeal that you're sending out electronically, you want to send it out a couple of times. So make sure you've got that on your calendar. So that's tip number 2, is to make sure that you're working on your donor communications. And by the way, if you do decide to send out a holiday letter or a holiday card to your donors, make sure that you've put that information into your donor database, because that counts as a donor touch. That's a communication with donor. It's one of our moves management steps. All right, so the third tip we have for you is on your fund development. So everything to do with your fundraising. And really the best thing that you could be doing right now, because you're at the end of the year, if you've lost some traction, if you've lost some time because maybe you had some events canceled or you had to shift your focus a little bit, it's okay. What we want to be doing now is preparing for 2021. So I know that we've shared with you before, and if you Google or go on the AFP website, you can find templates for fund development calendars, planners, planning guides, templates. Find something that's going to work for you and start putting into your plan what things you're going to be tackling next year. What events are you focusing on? What grants are you going to go after? What are the deadlines for those grants? What communications you're going to have with your donors? When are your appeals going to be happening? All of that needs to be mapped out in your development calendar. And now is a good time to work on that. It's a great way to prepare. All right, so that was number 3. Number 4 is about compliance. Compliance is another one of those areas that it's so easy for us to forget about, but we've got to stay on top of it all the time. The first thing I would recommend is going to Sunbiz or your Secretary of State for your state. Make sure that your profile is up to date. Changes of address, change of registered agent, board members that have stepped off the board, new board members that have been elected to the board, or officers. Make sure that information is accurate. Your donors and your funders are looking at that consistently to make sure that it's up to date. Another couple of things you could think about your GuideStar profile. That's another area that people look at pretty often. Make sure that it's robust. You've put as much information as you can in there. You qualify for different levels and different badges when you've completed certain information in your GuideStar profile. So I would encourage you to go ahead and complete that as much as possible. And then think about, when is your charitable solicitation registration renewal due, things that need to be on a calendar planned for in advance. Just go ahead and start getting those compliance items in order for next year. Okay, so that was number 4. Number 5 is about your board. So this is board development. There are a few different things to be thinking about as we get to the end of the year and we're approaching the next year. The first is, make sure that you have somewhere on your calendar, you have your annual board meeting scheduled. That's really important. We sometimes forget that. Your regular quarterly board meetings or monthly board meetings are not your annual board meeting. That's something different. So make sure that you've got that on your calendar, your board members are aware of the dates. And while you're at it, go ahead and look at the board meetings that you have scheduled for the coming year and put them on a calendar, share them with your board members so that they know well in advance when they're expected to be at a board meeting, whether it's live or virtual or however it's going to happen for 2021. So I think the annual meeting is really important, and getting those board meetings scheduled is critical. Be thinking, are all of your current board members, have they gone through an orientation? Maybe that's something you need to think about for next year, having a board orientation. Maybe if you have more than 1 or 2 board members that did not go through an orientation this year, could be a great opportunity to do that with them. And then the other thing to be thinking about is your board recruiting. So what is your plan for board recruiting? How many board members are going to be coming off the board next year? Have you started to talk to your current board members? We all know your current board members are really the best connection to future board members. So get them thinking about who they know, who could be a good fit to be serving on your board. So that was number 5, talking about board development. The last tip we have for you as you go to the end of year checklist, or in your mind you're running through the things that you want to get completed by the end of the year, the last thing is about your marketing plan. Have you put any thought into that? Have you taken maybe some lessons from this year and incorporated them into next year? But the earlier, the sooner you can get that mapped out. And I know that's in every business, right? That's whether in your for-profit sector or the nonprofit sector. Planning is key. So make sure that you've spent a little bit of time, you've done some analysis of what's worked this year and what hasn't worked, some goals maybe that you have for next year, and even thinking about your budget for that. Is that something that you can actually allow for next year, or do you need to be doing it in-house? So really look at your marketing plan as well, and make sure that you've got some things scheduled out already for the coming year, and that you have some themes as well, right? So that you know what kinds of things you're going to be looking at month to month, whether it depends on the environment and what's happening, or it's internal things that are really unique to your organization. So I hope these 6 tips are helpful. Just as a reminder, the first one was about your financials. The second one is about your donors. The third one is about your fund development or your annual development plan. The fourth one was about compliance. The 5th one was about your board development. And the 6th one is about your marketing plan for next year. So thank you again for joining us on the Global Good channel. Don't forget that you can head over to the description of this video, and that has information to get you to the blog, and that's the place on our website where you can actually download this list, and you could even check it off if you wanted to. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kirsten Stevens. Great to be with you today.